Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making our own homemade sauerkraut, and you can just do this with two ingredients, your fresh cabbage and kosher salt if you want. Today I'm actually going to be putting in just a little bit of caraway seed for a little extra flavoring. But here we go. We're making homemade sauerkraut. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to peel off the wilted outer edges of the cabbage here and set those aside, because we just want the fresh, green, crispy part from the inside. So let's get this off and cleaned up. And now we're just going to cut the cabbage. We want it to be nice thin slices. So I'm going to cut the cabbage. Cut it away from the core. Kind of then just dispose of the core. All right, so now we're just going to cut it into very, very thin as I can. Very, very thin slices for the sauerkraut. All right, so the cabbage is all sliced up. You can see it's nice, thin slices. The pieces that were a little chunkier, I just diced them up real small. But the cabbage is sliced nice and thin. About 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. I'm using coarse kosher salt today because that's what I have on hand. So I'm mixing the salt in the cabbage, and I'm just going to knead it in with my hands and try to get it mixed in very well. I'm also going to add some caraway seed just for a little bit of extra flavor. But you can just make it without. Just the salt and the cabbage is enough to make a fine sauerkraut. So like I said, I'm just going to mix it in with my hands just to get the seeds and the salt distributed as evenly as I can. You know, it's pretty thick in here. And this is the largest mixing bowl I have. So I'll try to be careful not to make too big of a mess. And then once it's all mixed in, I'm going to pack it in this jar over here. You can use quart-sized mason jars. It'll take about 2 of them. Or you can just use whatever you happen to have. As you're mixing it, you can kind of feel the salt. I don't know if you can see it on here, but you can see that it's a little bit shinier. It's a little bit wetter. The salt is drawing the moisture out of the cabbage, and that's what we want, because we want it to cure in its own cabbage juices. There we go. Pick up some of this that's spilling out everywhere. All right, so we're gonna mix it in. Just take a couple of minutes. All right, it feels like it's pretty well mixed up in here, so I'm gonna start putting it in the jar. And I'm just gonna shove handfuls of it in the jar. Try not to make too much of a mess out of it here. Packing it down in there. We want it nice and tight. What we're going to do is we're going to put it in the refrigerator to let it start curing. And for the first 24 hours, every couple of hours, I'm just going to tamp it down to squish it in there, because we want to make sure that the cabbage is sitting underneath its own juices. And tomorrow, if it doesn't have enough cabbage juice to cover the cabbage, then we'll add just a little bit of salt water to cover it. But what we really want is for it to cure in its own juices. So you can see it Didn't quite fill up the jar, and that's okay. Pressing it down as much as I can. And then what I'm gonna do for now is I have this jar. Literally, I just weighted it down with some nuts and bolts that I had handy. I put them in a Ziploc bag. And I'm just gonna put that in here on top. And that will help to keep the cabbage pressed down. But also, when I go to tamp it down later, I can just press on the jar to kind of continue to press it so that it all compresses under its own juices. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just throw a towel over the top of it. I don't wanna put a lid or any plastic wrap because I want the air to be able to get in and circulate. But I don't want any dust from the air in the kitchen, or as we open the refrigerator door and dust may fly in and out. We don't want anything to get in to the cabbage, so I'm just gonna put just a towel over the top of it for today. And then every couple of hours, we're just gonna reach in and press it down, and then we'll watch as the the cabbage juice starts forming up around the cabbage. So it's been a little over 2 hours, so I just want to show you, I'm pressing this down, and you can see the water bubbling up? Well, it's not water, but the cabbage juice bubbling up. It's already almost covering the cabbage that's in there. So we're going to keep pressing it down because we want there we go, we want the juices to come up over the top of the cabbage. But look at that, just after a couple hours, it's already looking so good. We're going to continue to let it ferment, and I'll give you an update in a couple hours. All right, so it's been a couple more hours. There's how our sauerkraut's looking. I'm just going to press it down a little bit more. And you can see the juice bubbling up over the spoon, which is good. That's exactly what we want. By tomorrow, we want to make sure that the juice fully covers the sauerkraut. Looks good. All right, I'm going to put it back in the fridge. We'll check on it in the morning and see what we've got. Just wanted to give a quick update at 24 hours in. It's still looking good, and the juice is still covering the top of the cabbage, so we're not going to worry about adding any extra water or anything at this time. I'm just going to put the jar back on it, put it back in the fridge, and then we're just going to let it sit. You can start taking just a little bite every day until you think it's going to be to your taste. I would say at least 3 days, but my plan is to leave mine in a little bit longer. We'll see. I'll check back with you here in a couple of days and let you see how it's coming along. All right, so here we go. Our sauerkraut has been in the refrigerator for about a week. We're going to take it out and give it a taste test. It should be just about done. Now, you can eat it sooner if you like. You just test it out every couple of days and see if it's the consistency and taste that you like. Let's see if I can show you that there's still lots and lots of juice in here. So we did not have to add any extra water to our sauerkraut this time. Yep, that's good. It's just the right consistency. I like mine just a little bit more on the sour side. So I am going to put it back in the refrigerator for just a couple of more days and let it cure a little bit more. But it's perfectly fine and good to eat now. And if you do make your own homemade sauerkraut, drop some comments drop a message in the comments below and let me know how it turned out for you.